in everyone to another one of our IT Leadership Lab live streams. Today we're going to be talking all about imposter syndrome and how you can squash that and how you can start owning your own success within IT. But before we get started, for anybody that is new to the IT Leadership Lab, maybe you saw this stream in an email or on social or something, the IT Leadership Lab is a place for IT leaders to connect with each other, share resources, share different templates or ask questions. Basically just any IT leader can log in, come together, and learn from each other. So we host these streams once every couple of weeks to talk about different topics within IT leadership. Usually they'll lean on kind of that people management side or budgeting, things that you might not get trained on as you come up in IT. So, and of course, a lot of that also comes with its own imposter syndrome, because you might have done an amazing job as an individual contributor, and they said, hey, why don't you be a manager? Why don't you manage this team and manage all of these functions? And then suddenly you go, oh, well, I don't have any training in that. And you kind of feel a little bit alone. So we're going to talk about imposter syndrome today. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our panel to introduce themselves. I know they're all familiar faces to everyone, but just as a refresher, Nick, if you want to go ahead and start and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your journey in IT.
Absolutely. I should really work on my elevator pitch. I'm terrible at this, so it's a little bit of an imposter syndrome already. So my name is Nick Peoples. I'm the IT director for ARL Biopharma Incorporated. And I've been here for maybe 5 years. And before that, I worked with the state of Oklahoma to do IT strategy for 21 agencies. And before that, it was all MSP life. So, got a little bit of exposure to everything through that. So that's it in a nutshell.
Sweet. Well, welcome in. Don't worry, I am still working on my own elevator pitch for this stream. I think this is, I don't know how many streams I've done at this point, and I'm still working on my own elevator pitch. So, well, Brian, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Brian Walters. I'm the IT director for Pinnacle Structures. I'm in Cabot, Arkansas, which is about 18 miles north of Little Rock. I've been here 14 years. Most of that as a solo IT director, but I finally hired another IT person this year, and it's changed everything. It actually has brought its own imposter syndrome with it, but I got some stories I could share on that. Before that, I worked for the state of Arkansas and the University of Arkansas for medical sciences. And if I want to go all the way back, I used to work for Alltel Mobile, and they're no longer around. So, but that's where I got my IT start, was at Alltel.
Awesome. Yeah. I know the last time we talked, you were a solo IT IT shop, and now you have another person. So definitely would love to delve a little bit into that once we get started.
Yeah.
And then Tim, want to introduce yourself? You are, I think, the most frequent flyer of these IT Leadership Lab streams.
I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, because that means that with imposter syndrome, I don't know.
I think it's a great thing.
I'll take it. Honored to be back. My name is Tim Lanning. I'm the Vice President of IT for SJRC Texas, which is a nonprofit in the San Antonio, Texas area. 210 represent. Go Brahmas. Just kidding. We suck. Anyway, nonprofit IT is very interesting. And so it's kept me on my toes. The imposter syndrome came in. I started here as an IT manager, and then due to some leadership changes higher up in IT, our CFO kind of took the entire department over and said, Tim, write us a VP of IT job description. And I said, here you go. And she said, great, you're it. I'm like, what? So, with that has come new staff and expansions. We're actually doubling the size of the department here in the next few months. So imposter syndrome is real. And I will say I feel like a very supremely qualified subject matter expert in imposter syndrome. And that's very ironic. So honored to be back.
Yeah, well, welcome back. Yes, being an expert in imposter syndrome is a very funny and ironic title to have. Well, awesome. Thank you guys so much for hopping on. And I'll kind of just jump right in with the first question that I have. And it's kind of just a general one. Have you dealt with imposter syndrome a lot in your IT career? And do you still deal with it to this day?
So I'll jump in on that one, and absolutely, and definitely still. It's my first leadership position was a dotted line manager, which if you've never been exposed to dotted line management, it's BS. Pardon my French. It's you are all carrot no stick. So good luck getting anybody to do what you need them to do on time, and it takes a lot of patience, and it really doesn't help with the imposter syndrome when you're showing up and saying that, hey, this is my project, I'm in charge of this. Would you please help? And so, that didn't help anything, but it does teach you how to work with people. And because it's all carrot, no stick, you get real good at the carrot side. So, persuading people to work with you and all of that. Sorry, I ran out of steam. So yes, definitely have dealt with imposter syndrome there and continue to do so as a leader of a small team of 11 people. It's every day is wondering, do they think I'm a fraud? Do they think that I, don't know what I'm talking about? And, trying to overcome that feeling that you feel like maybe you have to prove yourself to your team or to your peers. And instead, trying to build up on that confidence level that, you're not here to prove anything. You got to the position you're in through merit, hopefully. And just, trying to build and exude that level of confidence in your own self.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, so yeah, I'll jump in as well. I think one thing that I've really struggled with is now that I think there's two types of imposter syndrome, at least in IT, that I've experienced. There's straight up, what am I doing in my role? I feel like a fraud, right? But there's also kind of a management component of it, and Nick, you were speaking to kind of both. But I've noticed as I've stepped into leadership, especially at the vice president level, that's very much like I'm hanging with the executive team, board meeting exposure, all that. The little baby IT manager Tim 5 seconds ago did not get exposed to any of that, and so definitely even more the management side. But then having a team can kind of manifest imposter syndrome, at least it has for me. And part of that is I have folks on my team that are really go-getters. Like they will attack any task you give them, and they'll do it relentlessly, and they'll get wins, right? What's that like, right? But one thing I've had to be really careful about is my team is getting all these wins, and I have to constantly check myself because I may not be getting the credit. But like you have to kind of so imposter syndrome is just in that instance, this guy's better than me. Oh, he's coming for my job. Oh, I'm not doing all these things that he's doing or they're doing over there. That's irrelevant, right? That's that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Like your team should be such that. And sorry, I was getting a call from a vendor there. Threw my train right out the window. But your team's successes are your successes if your team is structured properly, right? If you are enabling them to get those wins, own that. Get your satisfaction in that. Realize that you have put them in that position. You've given them the tools to succeed. Therefore, it's your success too. Don't hog all the credit. Give them their dues. But anyway, imposter syndrome, it's very natural because we're asked to do a lot of hard work, and that has a lot of ability to just wear us down and I don't know, kind of contributing to burnout too. But imposter syndrome is just kind of a manifestation of that ultimately. So
yeah, I think that's something that I struggled with a lot when I was a manager. I if my team did something really, really well, I suddenly felt bad that I wasn't the one that did it because I feel like I should be doing more. I feel like I should touch every single part of it. And that's why I'm kind of glad to be an individual contributor right now, is because I can control every single part of my job. And so I definitely understand that feeling.
Yeah, and those feelings of control that can come from some of the root causes of imposter syndrome, which is perfectionism. We want to be perfect in all we do. We think we know everything we do, and sometimes we don't, and sometimes the leadership will make us feel like we don't. And being a solo IT director for 13 years, I had many of these situations, and never really knew there was a term for it, until I heard about imposter syndrome. And I remember one night specifically, there was a lot going on here at our main work site, but also have to help our CEO out at his house. And he was having minor issues, but for him that needs to be priority one. But I had to take care of the things here at the shop, and got all that done. Sent an email out to update everybody, and it was very detailed email. But when he saw it, he didn't like it. He saw he was saying things like, "You're touting your successes, but you didn't help me tonight. Be in my office tomorrow at 11." So you can imagine how that might make you feel. I didn't sleep well that night. But I came into the meeting. I came in confident. We talked about it. He just wanted to remind me that even though the workplace is priority, that don't stop your day till I fix his problem. And we shook hands, and things were good. After that moment. So I had many moments like that, but when you're by yourself, you're the only one. It's all on you, and the imposter syndrome can creep up many times in a solo shop.
Yeah, I'm sure, because you also don't have other people there to reassure you and make you feel better about what you've done. You kind of, it's all in your head. So definitely feel that is a very, very tough situation to be in. So we talk about imposter syndrome a lot, but are there any specific tasks or responsibilities that you feel imposter syndrome the most in, kind of in your current day-to-day, or even when you were maybe an individual contributor in IT?
Yeah, I mean, from the leadership lens, it's still, and I don't know if this ever does get better or not, but I still struggle with this. Any sort of disciplinary measure, whether it's just having a chat or having to talk to somebody about their metrics or whatever it might be, it never doesn't feel odd to be talking to another adult in such a manner. And especially, as a parent, we were talking backstage, and there's a few parents on the panel, and it's you've got to be really careful not to, let that part creep in as well. I try to be very, very sure that I'm not treating anybody like I would my daughter, and this is another adult, and try to treat them, with the respect and all that entails. But yeah, that in particular for me has always struck me as I shouldn't have to be the one talking to you about this. We need an adult to come into this conversation, please, and maybe set you straight. I'll just be here to nod along.
Yeah, and you realize that you're the adult there, and you go, "Oh no."
Yeah, that one hits hard.
Yeah,
I don't have advice on how to overcome that. It's just it's something that you have to deal with and get through. I mean, it does get easier to get through those conversations with practice and all of that. The more you're exposed to it, the less uncomfortable it necessarily feels. But the feeling that it's not right doesn't, for me, ever go away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about y'all, Brian, Tim? Do y'all have any specific tasks or responsibilities that are very, 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 very affected by imposter syndrome?
Yeah. Since I'm kind of in a jack of all trades situation, they expect us to know everything about everything, and I would say software development is one of the big ones. I don't know what it is in other businesses, but we rely heavily on Excel VBA because it does everything a small business could need. So Um, those things right there, I do feel imposter syndrome creep up a lot because there are situations where, okay, this file didn't work right because the code was wrong, and I got to get in there and look at that code. And I'm like, oh, I just don't know what to do right now. And this is before AI. Now that AI is here, as your best friend in imposter syndrome sometimes. I would say for here, it would be software development.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You're good.
I was just going to say, for me, and to kind of spoil a future Leadership Lab conversation, I have been blessed to inherit some messy organizations in my tenure. And so I think just that is very daunting. And I'm not going to go into detail on that too much, but that has really driven my imposter syndrome, is I'm responsible for this. Yeah. Really? I have to make this better? And then you just kind of put your head down, and you're going to get, especially if you're changing things, especially in a company that, let's say, has grown significantly in the past, it's gone from a little mom and pop thing to now it's this massive thing. You're changing some of these legacy things and some of these legacy vibes. What do you mean I can't have admin rights on my computer? Right? Those little nitty gritty stuff. You having to be the one to come in and stick to your guns and say, no, this has to happen for, you don't have to justify yourself too much, but that can really contribute to that, as well as budgeting, right? Budgeting is always daunting to me. And especially again, when you're working with peanuts and packing peanuts specifically, and the, duct tape and everything that you're given, how do you make that? It's just daunting, right? And then there's this, again, what you mentioned, Brian, about perfectionism is that is it, right? You want all this to be perfect, but then you're given less than ideal circumstances and expected to make that happen. And also you're in charge of it. It's your thing. If that doesn't work, it's on you. It's only natural, but you have to own it. You have to know. One thing I wanted to say, and I was going to say it at some point in this webinar, I'll say it now. If you, I'm just going to say this, if you did not lie in your application and lie in your interview and lie at any point to get to the job you're in, and you were picked for your merits and for the fact that you can do this job, own it. Know that you were brought in for this role. You are qualified. People have found you qualified. Run with that. You're there for a reason. Own it, claim it, take it to the bank, sleep on it every night. That's sometimes the only thing that's gotten me through some of my imposter syndrome in the past few years. So I'll get off my soapbox.
Oh, you're fine.
Oh, that is really great advice. I already know I'm going to clip that and put it somewhere or something, because that is really, really good advice. I also wanted to touch on a little bit of, Brian, you said you weren't great at software development and stuff like that. How do you reach out to maybe somebody that is a subject matter expert and get their advice without feeling that imposter syndrome? Because I think that is a big issue that I have, is I'll want to handle everything myself because I feel like I need to. And the minute I have to reach out to someone for help, suddenly I'm a fraud. So how do you kind of get past that?
At first I will say that pride would take over. It's like, oh, I can get this. I can learn this. I can read this book overnight and learn this stuff. But it got to the point where it was just, spinning my wheels on things like that. And so the first time I sought help was in the forums. And there is a popular forum out there about software development that I found out if you don't type the message right, they'll delete it or they won't post it. And if you don't have the right things in there, and again, imposter syndrome took over. It's like, man, did I not explain this right? So I eventually found other friendlier forums to get involved in. And before I got here 14 years ago, they used to just hire an IT consultant. They'd call them, hey, we got a mouse problem. And 2 days later, they come replace the mouse. But the gentleman that runs that company, he's actually very well known in the Little Rock area, and he's very successful in that business. and he's got developers there. So one day I just reached out to him and said, "Man, I need some help," and since he worked with us before, he gave us a steep discount on development projects. So I've used him a few times on that, but I had to get over my pride to take that step. And once I did that, it was a lot easier to approach these software projects. And now with AI, it's really helping out. I have to say on software.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the pride's a huge part of trying to get over those imposter feelings. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say I've had to confront that as well, particularly with the software development side. I come from the infrastructure and networking side of the house.
Yeah.
That's where my expertise was built and where I'm super comfortable. And now I have a team of 4 developers, and they're all very, very gifted and extremely bright and intelligent people who can talk circles around me all day long. And it's going straight over my head. And so that was really hard at first to learn to rely on their expertise. So I've built a team of people who I trust implicitly. And so I don't need to know how to do every part of their job now. But it was very difficult at first trying to come to grapple with being a leader and being in charge of them, and not understanding what they're doing as well as they do. Because, coming from the other side of the IT house, that was easy to do. And it's probably a pretty common path, I imagine, for people to get promoted up through competence and expertise into leadership over that area. So it's again, I don't have a solution for this, but I will acknowledge that is a difficult concept to grapple with. And I think I saw somebody in the comments talk about staying humble and staying honest. Not somebody, Ronald specifically. Thank you, Ronald. That's 100% what it is. You just have to be honest and let them know, like, hey, this is not my wheelhouse. Please explain it to me like I'm 5, maybe 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned staying humble and admitting that you don't know everything, and that's really important. And I think it's also important to know that everybody deals with imposter syndrome, and sometimes not everybody has the answers to all of the questions, and that's okay. It's okay to not know everything. It's okay to still struggle with certain things, because
that's where perfectionism gets in the way. You don't want to be known as the failure. You failed.
Yeah.
And again, like they're saying in the comments, you got to be humble. And that's I've been humbled several times here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough job. It's a tough job.
One of my CFO's favorite sayings was "perfect is the enemy of good," and that we try to embody that still here today. And you really can't let perfectionism stop you from just getting the job done. 75% sometimes is perfectly acceptable to get through and continue on throughout whatever the process is that you're working through.
Yeah,
and then related to the expertise, something I try to keep in mind too is everybody Googles. Maybe you're not seeing that, and people are presenting themselves as being a knowledge expert on everything you ever talk to them about, but I guarantee they're Googling too.
Yeah, most likely.
Well, I kind of wanted to take a slight tangent off of what Nate just said in the chat. It says transitioning from fixer to leader requires a shift in mindset. Easy to say, not easy to do. And man, yes, because I think in IT, it's very easy to have that fixer mindset. I mean, literally, if you're staring at a ticket queue, you're in that mindset. Leading is just that's been hard, especially honestly. This role as an IT manager when I started was the first time I actually had personnel management experience, and that was very humbling. And you just take it as a learning opportunity. That's the way I try to see everything. Unless you're just like, actively tearing down the IT infrastructure, maliciously, right? That's about the only time you can't really take that as a learning opportunity. But just about any other time, there's going to be grace given. Hopefully you're in a culture where that's okay. If not, I'm sorry. But and that's the thing too, is if you're not in a culture like that, there was an element of that in my career where, as a leader, there wasn't grace given for mistakes that I made. And okay, well, I'm gonna work with that. But for my team, I'm definitely not going to run that way. I'm going to give grace. I'm going to do all these things, and I'm going to be the change. Literally, the saying, "Be the change you want to see in the world." I mean, that's it. But it is, Nate, you're entirely right. It's a hard mindset shift, and I won't say I've done it 100%, but it's definitely a struggle. And I think that's a lot of the imposter syndrome is you're thrown out of your fixer mindset into something completely different, often with no training, because out of necessity. How do you deal with that?
Yeah. It's a completely different skill set. Leadership versus fixing things. It can be hard to transition between those, and especially if you have both of those things on your plate at once, transition between those things on a day-to-day basis too can be really challenging. So, we've talked about the negative impact. We've talked about all of the things that we overthink and the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, or the things that IT leaders do. What are some things that you do to try to minimize that imposter syndrome? We talked about being humble. We talked about admitting you don't know everything. But is there anything else that you do on a day-to-day basis to try to remember that you did achieve everything to get here, and you did do everything that you needed to get into this role?
You take every scrap of. Go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to say, I prepared for this question from the team aspect and not from the personal aspect. So sorry.
Yeah, I was going to cover that too.
Yeah.
Definitely important.
Sorry. Back to you, Tim.
Well, you take every scrap of win you get, right? No matter how small. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm talking about wins. You're talking about owning it. If you're getting those, those small wins and you're making the small changes, just know that that's ammunition for you to realize that, okay, you're doing things. And if you're in that position where like your wheels are stuck a little bit and you may not be seeing the full picture or anything, I was definitely there. I will say I was there in this job. Before I was VP was kind of like I was working with half the information and not in an ideal way. You work hard. Put your nose down and nose to the grindstone, as it were, and put your head down and just work at what you know. Do what you can. Make the best of the situation you're in, even if it's less than ideal. And I will say completely anecdotally, I'm not prescribing this for anyone. Completely anecdotally, I would have conversations like laptop swaps for CEOs and CFOs and everybody, and everyone would say, "Hey, you're doing great. I know you're not dealing." They would tell me some things, and I was like, "Oh wow, okay, IT situation's not that great, but it's out of my control." They would see the value. They see the value that I was creating, and the hand that I was dealt. They would weigh those and see, right, in my experience. So I think to mitigate imposter syndrome is really, I would just say, well, I think we've all hit on it. Be humble, own it. You're here for a reason. Mm-hmm. Rock and roll with that.
Yeah.
I would say maybe just rewording some of what you've said, but just reframing is super important. So, take a step back and don't focus on what you can't do or what you don't know, but instead focus on what you have done and can do. I know reframing is a popular term elsewhere, but it is really important to do that mind shift of switching from failure mode thinking to success.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one thing I've learned too was, and it's probably a good life lesson in general, but don't seek validation from others. You want that. You want to hear that from your leadership. Job well done, but if you know you're doing a good job, that's where you get your validation from. If you know it, as long as you don't let that imposter syndrome creep in, but there were times where I just would complete a job, a big task overnight, come in the middle of the night, wait for that email. Good job. It never comes, and that could drive you crazy over time, and I've learned just to enjoy those good jobs when they do come in, when they rarely come in. But don't always seek that when that happens.
That's a really great point that, especially in IT leadership or leadership in general, the higher up you go, the more the attaboys dry up.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get those as much whenever your boss is the CEO, as when you had a whole chain of people above you who would be happy to say, great job. You did a really, you nailed whatever that was.
Mm-hmm.
So if you rely on those for validation, you might suffer a little bit. So finding that intrinsic value is pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that Nate also in the chat put it in a great way. Find a proven system, framework, or methodology that provides a structure for leadership success. Leaning on a proven system instead of on our own abilities can really build confidence to overcome imposter syndrome.
Very good.
Yeah, I think that is great insight as well. I think Nate's kind of nailed a lot of these points. So thank you, Nate. I appreciate that. Kate also had a question kind of related to what Tim was talking about when people say that you're doing a great job. How do you take that feedback and take it to heart and know that they mean it? Because that is a very frequent struggle.
I'll just kind of
I think your mic is cutting out a little bit. Oh no. It's still cutting out.
Yeah.
All right. I'll let somebody else take it.
Okay.
Submit a ticket. There you go.
Yeah, personally, I have to try to set aside whatever thoughts or doubts I have about my own performance. And I have to take what people say at face value. And if they're saying I did a great job, I need to say thanks and try to believe that, as hard as it is. Sometimes to feel that way, I kind of have to force myself almost to believe what they are saying and not believe that there's pity.
I think I struggled with answering this one because I don't struggle to believe whenever I get those types of compliments. And I'm thinking about that. I think it comes down to the types of relationships you have with your peers or coworkers. If maybe it's at an individual to individual level. If somebody, you don't know them well, then maybe I could see why you might not take it to heart. But if you have a relationship with somebody and you trust them already, then if they give you a pat on the back, take that at face value. Like Brittany was saying, you've got to just kind of trust that.
Y'all can hear me, right?
Yes. Yeah, perfect.
I figured out what was wrong. Don't worry. Don't need a ticket. I'm good.
Okay, good.
So, I mean, on this point, obviously, Kelly asking clarifying questions. Yes, absolutely. Anecdotally speaking, I mean, I kind of alluded to the fact that I was given less than an ideal hand and really had to make some changes real quick. And one of those things that I really did that was human clutch was having a recurring meeting with our entire HR department just to hear out what their IT concerns are. And that was huge. We uncovered a lot of red flags that they weren't telling us about, that they didn't know that they could tell us about, right? And we found ways to improve those. And I mean, that was big too. And then now it's to the point where it was a weekly meeting. Now it's a bi-monthly meeting because we've fixed everything. And I take that as a win, right? But now it's the relationship with HR specifically is a lot better, and it's less, IT, blah 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 blah. Because there was a sucky reputation that IT had at the beginning, and now it's a lot more like HR's willing to go to bat for us. Like, I got an entire department to kind of be on our side a little bit just by, having a space for them to air their concerns, right? And yeah, it was kind of intense at the beginning, but you just kind of put your head down. Like I've said, put your head down and work through the issues, make sure those things get resolved, and then check, check, check. You got all these wins. Everyone sees it, they see the improvements, and now I'm getting, our senior VP of HR is saying, hey, Tim, I got you. So that, I don't know, that I think, Kate, that's a great question. How do you actually know they mean it? I don't know that you can, but you can definitely see the perceptions change as time goes on, if you're doing the right thing. So
Yeah, that's a great answer. Yeah, Kate, I struggle with this a lot personally, not from a strictly IT leadership standpoint, from I do trust my friend and I do know that they appreciate me, but maybe they're just being nice to me. Maybe they feel bad for me. They feel like they have to be nice to me for one reason or the other. So I definitely understand, and I think that it is a matter of just taking things at face value for what they are and trying to believe those things that people say. Um, I also wanted to bring up another question from chat. I believe it's Hike. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. If I'm not, feel free to correct me. But they say, I know IT usually gets overshadowed by other departments such as sales, engineering, etc. How do you, as an IT manager, bring a spotlight to IT and get recognition for both yourself and your team?
Well, we recently started using what we used to call Yammer, now Viva Engage. We created an little IT section that we're posting some of the projects that they would benefit from on there, mainly just pictures and just saying, hey, we put in a new switch, hey, this is going to improve this and that. We got additional server space. We're going to have faster storage. So trying to use that because we are kind of not seen. We're actually in the opposite direction of most IT departments. We're not in the basement. We're in the attic right now. So so we're kind of hidden up here. No one really sees us unless they need something. So we're taking baby steps. We're using the Viva Engage just to get more focus on us and put a good face on IT.
Yeah, I think that's.
I was going to say, Viva Engage is a great tool for community engagement if you can get your company to engage with it.
Yes.
I know there's a lot of resources out there for that as well. Specifically, we weren't so successful at it, but I was going to say that at our organization we had some structures in place already that gave us a platform. So I would say step one is probably make sure you have a platform to be able to shout about IT from. For us, we have we follow the Traction EOS. It's a great resource if you look that up. It gives us L10 meetings from the leadership all the way down to the department level, and those are great places to show off. Here's all of the projects, the rocks as they call them, the quarterly goals that are on the table for this quarter, and these are software or new technology projects. A lot of them happen to have an IT component, and so that's a chance every week to bring those up. Or we have monthly, business reporting meetings where each department head reports on their individual departments. And so in that meeting in particular, I try to really cheerlead the IT team. And assuming the metrics are backing me up, it's very easy. There are months, of course, where sometimes it's like, well, hey, we're a little beleaguered right now. It's the first time I've ever said that word out loud. I think I said it wrong. I'm sorry, guys. Beleaguered? I don't know now. So threw my whole train off there. But yeah, it's have a platform that you can do that at, and then from there it's probably a relatively simple matter to just make sure that you're cheerleading the team and celebrating their victories. Keep track of those victories and bring them up as often and necessary as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll kind of throw in with the same thing I just said about the last question. I mean, with HR, had that cadence, right? And now I've expanded that to have this can get overbearing if you let it. Like you can really take up all your time doing this. So I try not to. I kind of have settled on like a bi-monthly cadence, right, as needed. But having time with each other department to really again, it starts as like hearing out your concerns, right? But then it's kind of a two-way street. And then there's the space, and we talk about the wins. I've had people just spontaneously bring up feedback for my team, and sometimes for me, I'll take those. But most of the time it's for my team because I'm enabling them to do the great work, and I'll let them own the credit for it. But having that space, like, yes, absolutely, shout it out to the entire organization, and I'm fully in agreement with that. I do that all the time in our quarterly town halls. I'll just give an IT status update and just call them out to the entire company saying, hey, these guys are doing great work. But I think going to the department level, that might be an idea too. I mean, especially if you have some more problem departments that are kind of needing some attention, that's a good idea. But just keeping the finger on the pulse there, not a bad idea. You can turn that into some wins pretty quickly. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that's kind of something that Jesse kind of touched on a little bit as well. Whenever there are those kind of attaboy, attagirls, CCing the team leadership and even maybe the user that was impacted, so the people that should see that great feedback, making sure that there's visibility on that too. Yeah, and then AJ also says, and don't forget to solicit feedback if they're not offering it freely, which I think is what you were touching on, Tim. I think this is a great way to help your team overcome imposter syndrome is by soliciting that feedback or even making sure all of that feedback is visible, all that positive feedback. Nick, I know that you wanted to touch a little bit on how you ensure that your team doesn't suffer from imposter syndrome. Do you have any other tips aside from, improving that visibility?
Yeah. Like I said, yeah, improving visibility. So this is the one section I actually prepared for. Document your achievements, though. I know we've talked about this a couple of times in a couple of different ways, but everybody needs to have a folder where they document their attaboys or attagirls. If you get a positive email, save that. That email folder will become your go-to resource for, pick-me-ups. I save the ones that I sent for my team, but we have a new and better tool now that we use. So we have bi-weekly scheduled one-on-ones. Luckily, we have a tool through our HR system that facilitates that and gives us structured questions and tracks the history of those answers over time. But a spreadsheet or a Word document like we used to use would work just fine for this. And one of the questions we ask every week during our one-on-ones here is there something that you've accomplished since we last met that you're particularly proud of? And it could be any type of small victory, just anything that they thought, like, I did a good job on that. And we document those and make sure that we're diligent about that one, because when it comes time for your quarterly or annual reviews or however often your review cycle is, it's often very difficult to think back and remember wins, especially smaller wins that seemed like they might be kind of run of the mill if you didn't take the moment to think about it. So at the end of the quarter or at the end of the year, you look back on what you've done and it's just day-to-day business. But now we have that written down and it's easy to go back and remember, like, oh, I did a really great job on this thing, or consistently did really good jobs on this sort of project. So documenting your achievements, documenting your completed projects, keeping your LinkedIn up to date, or your personal notes if you can't keep your LinkedIn up to date with work projects because of confidentiality. Document though. And then beyond achievements, your skills as well. Documenting your skills, again, keeping your LinkedIn up to date, or even building your own skill matrix with a list of things you need to master for your current role, things that you want to master, and just track your progress on there. Anything from like need to research it or have just been exposed to it, all the way up to like competent and expert at this particular skill. That's going to be a great resume fodder. It's going to be a huge confidence boost, and it's measurable progress. You can get real nerdy with it if you track it in a spreadsheet and start having your own charts and gamify it up as much as you need, and keep track of your skills and measure your actual growth and progress in your role in a very specific visual way. I think super helps. So for our team, we have the skills matrix. It's just a spreadsheet. It's nothing fancy. And we track each individual person. They self-report on their own skills on there, and we help come up with quarterly goals for things that they're going to learn over that quarter based off of that spreadsheet.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I would love to see that in the lab if you can post something like that. I don't know if it's confidential information. Obviously not the actual information of your employees.
Right.
But
Yeah.
something like that sounds
I'll
really
share something out there. I've got to go through and strip out. It's very specific for exactly our tech stack and
Sure.
tools.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that having as much structure in place really helps give you a little bit more confidence in the way that you're doing things, because then you always kind of you have things to fall back on. You have things that you consistently use. So yeah, I think those templates are really helpful. If you don't mind me asking, what tool do y'all use right now for those one-on-one meetings?
It's through our HR system as
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I used to use, was it 10.5? Something like that? Maybe not. But it was something like that where it had regular questions on a weekly basis, and I would be able to answer them before the actual meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's how this works as well. I'm sure there's a bunch of solutions for it, but yeah, just making sure that it's tracked and it's regular and you're hitting the same tempo beats every time to ensure consistency and have something to actually measure or see your progress on. We also ask on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being whelmed and 10 being overwhelmed, how has your work week been? And so that's measurable every time, and that's a nice chart to see. Like, oh yeah, that was when X system went down and everybody was slammed for a week and everybody's stress level spiked.
Yeah. Definitely nice to have that ongoing measurement. Nate also mentioned being recognized for one's personal contribution to the team, and contribution to overall company goals is also a good way to keep a team engaged and confident. So yeah, I think that's good. It's, not just personal contributions, but your tech's overall contributions to the organization is great. Yeah, and Tim, screenshotting wins and just putting them in a Teams chat. We have something like that here at Ninja. We have a thanks chat, and then also, a feedback or wins chat too, where people will just screenshot good things and tag the person and say, hey, I just got this, and they complimented this other person, or our experience with support was amazing, and so we're just screenshotting that and putting it in Slack is what we use, and just putting it in there and being able to reference it and have other people see it is really, really, it's a really, really nice feeling. So I try to do that with people in the company too, and especially easy from the community side. It's great because I see all the good fun stuff where people are bragging on their account managers or whatever. So, all right. Well, I think those are all the questions that I have. Do y'all have any final thoughts about overcoming imposter syndrome? Anything that we might not have touched on? Sweet.
Well, you thought.
I thought maybe.
I just kind of wanted to recap, right? I think imposter syndrome is a very natural thing to feel, and don't be. I almost kind of want to look at it like this: don't be afraid of the fact that you're feeling imposter syndrome, because that probably means that you're doing something right, because your brain's going to jump in there and say, whoa, hold on, I can't be doing things right. That's insane. So just don't be understand that it's a phenomenon that you can experience. Work with it. Find a way that's going to work for you to work with it. Understand that it's happening. Be humble. Own your role. You are the person that's being tasked with X, Y, and Z, no matter how small your role. If you're level 1 tech, right? I'm asking my level 1 tech to do level 1 tech things, and own that thing. Do it, right? All the way up to my level and beyond, right? It doesn't matter. And part of that is just fostering a culture on your team of there are no stupid questions. We're all in the business of getting better. If we mess up, we mess up, as long, again, as you're not wiping company data or something. There's things you can't recover, but and having those hard conversations too. If we're a culture of ownership, is, I guess, what I would kind of categorize it as. Maybe that's a whole other thing that I could probably go off on. I'm not going to, but own what you're doing, own what your role is, own what your team's role is, own the wins, own the losses. Just as a leader, it should stop with you. It should stop, and don't be afraid to ask stupid questions of your boss, of another department. As long as you approach it humbly and with a, hey, here's why I'm asking, right? Like, I'm not doing this because I'm dumb. It's because I need to know, and this may be a stupid question, but I would have done myself so many favors when I first stepped into this IT manager role if I had asked a ton of stupid questions, because I found things out when I became VP, right? Like, that I should have known. And so, no stupid questions. Anyway, off the soapbox.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. Gene said something along those lines, or along similar lines. Never say not my job. Say, what can I do to help? We can talk about whose job it was later.
Yeah, and I want to bounce off of that real quick. I'm actually in the middle of a big project that most of it is not my job. There's a heavy machine out in our shop that we decided last February of 2024 to retrofit, and it took a year to get all the parts in. So we're actually going through that project right now, and most of it is just a mechanical project, but I decided to take over this project and drive it. It does have one gigantic piece of IT where I had to reprogram, again, imposter syndrome when it comes to software development, part of our export from Excel to these machines so we could read properly in the new software. And I was updating my boss over the past couple months about that, and he was sending me weird feedback and email like, yeah, we'll see what happens, kind of that type of thing. And the proof is in the pudding, but the pudding's here and the proof is there now. But I still haven't got, the attaboy email yet. This project was for most of the last 2 weeks. I was pushing these guys hard enough that they actually started run production last night. So we're ahead of schedule. The software's working. But, I'm not sitting here waiting for that approval email. I know that we're doing a great job, and I'm just satisfied that we're actually running a product on a new system right now. So maybe that attaboy email might come a little bit later, but also maybe something we'll post in our Be the Engage and let them know what's going on out in the shop. So
yeah.
Attaboy.
All right, thank you.
I'm also sharing in the chat that we have a whole section of the lab, which is share your wins. So really awesome things that you're excited about. Definitely pop them in there. I want to build a culture of everybody encouraging others and being able to share what you're excited about, what you've achieved, and realizing that what you've achieved is really important. But as you said earlier, Brian, you sometimes don't get those emails, and just being confident in yourself and knowing that you did a great job with a specific project, that goes a long way too.
Yeah, I may swing by the CEO's office and let him know that we're ahead of schedule, just to put a little pump in there, So.
Yeah, and hey, you should. I think that bragging about yourself or just getting excited about something and sharing.
Yeah, he challenged me last week to see if we can get him faster, so I'll follow up with him on that.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Then he'll love to see that. Well, that's awesome. All right. Tim mentioned the extreme ownership. The buck stops here, and don't shift blame. Yeah, I think that's something that I think a lot of IT leaders and leaders in general is through a lot of the time you own the negatives and you.
There we go. All right.
Oh, perfect. You own the negatives and you let your team own the positives. And I know that's a tough thing to handle in leadership too, but yeah. All right. Well, that is all I've got. Thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. I hope that everybody's coming away from this live stream with a little bit more confidence and a few more abilities to kind of really share your wins and celebrate them and own your own success. So I would love to see that from everybody here. So thank you for everybody for participating in chat. Thank y'all to my panelists for being a part of it. Really appreciate having you on. Look forward to having you on again. And then in a couple of weeks, we'll be talking with, we'll actually be talking with a CIO to talk about how they, about their journey in IT, and also the things that every new IT leader needs to know. So if you are brand new to IT leadership, or if you've been in IT leadership and are always looking for new tips, we're going to kind of go over those big things that new IT leaders should know as they get into leadership. So, but yeah, thank y'all so much. Really appreciate it. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that stream is actually going to be at 3 p.m. Central instead of 11 a.m. Central. So a little bit of a time shift, but it'll be on Tuesday. So, all right. Well, take care. Have a good rest of the day, and I will catch you on the next one.
All right. See you, everybody.
Thanks, Brittany.
Bye,
Thanks,
y'all.
everyone.